pertaining to the unique situations via the conduct of an Alanon Share.
Hi, I'm Corey. I am nervous. Thank you. If you're a newcomer, this meeting is big, and I get it. I've been coming to this meeting probably for 3 years off and on, and I have never spoken once in this room. So this will be my very first time. So here you go. I've been in Al-Anon 5 years. I consider myself really a 2-year mark because I really started working the program 2 years ago. For about 3 years I came and to meetings like this and listened, and I got a lot of relief. And then I really started to want to get better. Also, side note, if you come to lead this meeting, I realized that this table, by the way, is on the floor for the AA meeting, we realized, and we've actually put it on the stage for the Al-Anon meeting, which means we have to be on a stage. We can't just be down there and amongst the people. I just thought that made me laugh today in my nervousness. So, I think this program, what I want to talk today, where I'm at, is that this program is about choices for me. And so I want to talk a lot about choice. The first one, of course, is to choose to be in this program, which is a choice. For me, that involves qualifying. Ooh, there's dogs everywhere. It involves, he's chosen not to be in this meeting. That means qualifying for this program, which I do. I grew up in an alcoholic home. My parents were both alcoholics. They both come from a family of alcoholics. My grandfather drank himself to death, literally was found dead in a car from alcoholism. All of my family, everyone, Irish Catholic on one side, German Catholic on the other, just all drinkers, just drink. Both my parents were pretty high functioning, and I had a pretty high functioning childhood. But I grew up around a lot of trauma in that when I was 3, my brother drowned. He was 7. When I was 4, my grandmother was killed in a murder-suicide by my step-grandfather. And then when I was 5, my mother got breast cancer. And this all happened, very early stages, and that's what wires me to be nervous today. Because it was survival, there was a lot of survival going on. And that's a side note, because it's not about Al-Anon, but what happened as a result of that is my parents reached into the only tool that they had, which was alcoholism. It was what they were taught. I don't even resent them for doing it anymore, but they had a choice at that point, obviously on some level, and that was the choice that they made. I grew up around it, definitely they were social drinkers, so it was not like they were drunk all the time, but Friday night rolled around, Saturday night rolled around, the Elks Lodge was going to be heating up, and they were going to be having a few drinks and coming home, and maybe it's just a quiet night, maybe they're going to punch a hole in a wall, maybe I'm going to walk over my mother, pass out on the floor. And these are lovely people. I mean, I love them very much and was very loved, but they had this disease and they passed it on to me in the form of Al-Anonism. So I chose to come to this program. I think that's a choice. I chose to see all of these things about my family. I think that's a choice. I think not everyone has to do that. And then, like I said, 3 years I came to this program, and then I chose to work the steps. I chose to move forward. I chose to try to level up. And part of that step process is a lot more choices, I found out. So, first we choose to surrender, and then we choose to believe in a higher power greater than ourselves, which is not a logical process for me. It does not come easy at all. And every time I don't know that I feel it, I remind myself that I chose to make that choice. And then where I'm at, in step 3, I'm choosing to turn my will over to the care of this higher power. And that's really hard for me, and the reason I want to talk about choice a lot is because I'm trying to learn the difference between what is my will and what is God's will, what is my choice, what is my action, my agency, and what is beyond my control. And I think when I first came into the program, sort of what I call my sort of level 1 was like, oh, you could give up all this choice. Like, you don't have to make any decisions today. You don't have to be afraid of things. You don't have to try to fly the plane. Like, you don't have to worry about the plane landing. Like, you can actually just ride in the back. And all of these things were huge relief. I had literally had no idea that these were options to just you could just not freak out about the plane. Like you could just get on the plane and go and you don't have to worry about it. And then they got a little bit more difficult. Like I chose to put myself first. I got a divorce, 10 years, someone I love very much that was not the right person for me. That's a choice. And then, I started to choose contrary action. So I'm depressed, I'm sad, I don't want to go out. I'm going to go out anyway. I'm going to call people anyway. I'm going to act as if. These were all things that I could have done something different. And, it was that point of the program where I was starting this, what I call this sort of grief process around choice. Because there's this preamble, I don't think we read it in here, but there's a preamble in one of the million meetings I go to, thank you, I hear that, which is you and you alone are responsible for your own recovery. And that really freaks me out still to this day. I mean, it means there's not gonna be any external solutions, besides higher power and program, but you're not gonna get out of the work that's required to do it. You're gonna have to choose it. And that's another kind of grief. That's something that I was always hoping my alcoholic parents would change, I'm sure on some level. I was hoping they'd see me in a way that I wasn't being seen. I was hoping things would change potentially. I don't remember that. I remember just like powering through and being a straight A student. But I'm sure that I must have wanted to do that on some level. And so anyway, I was reading this the other day, and this is from One Day at a Time, which to me is like the tough love book of all the readers, which is why I'm into it right now. But this says, the steps are like medicine, which many of us won't bother to take, although we know they can heal us of sickness, of despair, frustration, resentment, and self-pity. Why is this? It may be we have a deep-rooted desire for martyrdom. Consciously, we think we want help, but some dark and hidden sense of guilt makes us crave punishment more than we want relief from ills. And I've been meditating on that for days, because I think that, that's the level that I'm at with this program. There is a point which you're on the floor and you're in your knees, and you're gonna make a choice whether you want to get out. Like, you're gonna ask for higher power. You have the program to help you. You don't have to do the recovery alone, and you don't even have to. It's not even you that's doing it, right? These things will be removed from you by higher power, but you have to make the choice to go every single day, or I have to make the choice. I should say I have to make the choice every day to like change, to make a different action, to actually want to recover. I think the wanting part I didn't realize was optional. Was actually something that I was choosing or not choosing. So I have no control over my feelings, and I have no control over my thoughts. But now, the way I'm trying to work it, I actually can choose different thoughts. I didn't know this was an option. It doesn't mean I can stop the thoughts that are coming in, but I can say, oh yeah, we can obsess about this all day, this past wrong or ill, or do we want to do something different? Is this going to work for us today? I don't really want to do this today, Corey. Like, let's do something else. And sure, the thoughts are going, but let's think about this flower that a fellow brought me, or let's think about whatever is gonna make us feel better. And I do the same thing with feelings. And some of that means looking at myself in the mirror and doing the Stuart Smalley thing, and like, I love you, and it feels very uncomfortable. But it's a choice. It's a choice to do that every day, to talk about loving myself, to talk to myself the way I would talk to somebody else in my situation. I have to do that. It also is a choice in this reading, I felt, of like giving up old friends. Like, defensive pessimism is my oldest friend, and it was a good friend. It really helped me. I could see around corners, I could see in the future, and I wasn't right all the time, but it really, like, if you're growing up in that kind of chaos, it was really helpful. Thank you, I hear that. And to give that up is really hard. And I think even as I'm working the program at certain levels, he's still hanging out there. I'm not really ready to let go of him yet, all the time. Sometimes I am. And I joke, like, my ex and I, like, he wouldn't watch Walking Dead because he's like, I don't understand. Like, if this happened, I would just blow my brains out. Like, I'm not gonna fucking live through a zombie apocalypse. And I was like, are you kidding? I've been training this my whole life. And I watched that show like this, and like I watch the villains, and I'm like, I can totally see why you justify your behavior. Like, of course you have to kill some people to get the group together. Like, I would lead the camp. I mean, but that's a choice in and of itself, and I think I love that. I can't wait for the zombie apocalypse. But anyway, this reading makes me feel, so like even just a couple days ago, I'm on my knee, the feelings are coming, and now I'm like, I choose to accept them. I'm like, let's let them come, let's let them pass through, let's hit the floor, let's pray to God, and let's cry and speak to this thing I can't know, and say that I'm afraid. And let's just see what happens. And now, like, it's like 5 minutes, and then I can go to a movie. Or I went out on Friday night after that same feeling moved through and was completely serene. That place, that deep, dark place where we always feel like we're victims or martyrs, there's a moment there to me that's choice, and that choice is to use the program. And in that moment, I can call a fellow. Fellowship is a choice. I struggle with fellowship. It's a choice to call people, to go out with people, to choose the winners, to stick with the people who are recovered. That's a choice. Or to call the people that I know aren't going to get me where I need to go. But that moment I've really been working on, thank you, I'll wrap up, where I look inside myself and I decide, do I want to get better? And then if I want to, when I want to, this program is waiting for me, and it's magical. So thank you for letting me share. Hi, I'm Corey. Hi, Corey. Welcome back from the break. Yeah, growing up in an alcoholic home. I mean, that reading is a lot about what we were talking about earlier. I think, I was just having a conversation with a fellow, so I'll talk about this, but I really wanted to talk about, when we think about choice, we're trying to break down the difference between will and agency and God's will. And, I was talking a little bit about attachment and detachment. And I really wanted, because I'm trying to find the lines between healthy attachment and healthy detachment. And I wanted to talk about attachment in this meeting. And I went to the readings, and there's literally not one mention in any index of the word attachment whatsoever. There are many mentions of detachment. I was like, there has to be one about how to healthily attach to ourselves, to higher power. And not one, not a single one. So I was like, I'm not going to bring that topic into the room because it's not programmed. And I think that's what's interesting about this program, because it's not about me, it's a we program. And the things that are going on with me that are outside of this room potentially, or things I'm doing in outside help, or things that are really important actually to me, they don't necessarily apply to this program in this way. And then we were talking it out, reasoning it out, and it was suggested that maybe it was there in a different way, in a different language, and we would have to look at what that language is. And that's really just this viewpoint, right, of what we decide to see and not see. I think in that reading, they're talking about, that sort of insanity where you see that someone is clearly drunk and they do not see themselves as drunk. They do not, I heard someone share earlier, different color, fighting about colors. Like that kind of mentality where we're sort of led to be insane because we're not really sure what reality is, or I'm not really sure what reality is because it keeps shifting. And there's something that happens, I think, growing up in an alcoholic home for me, I think you'll hear that, where, when you see somebody who is your parent and then they're sort of not your parent in that moment, you lose them for a second, in a way, to the alcoholism. And that's really traumatic, and I think it's really important to come to rooms and be reminded of that. This book is really heavy and intense, and reading it I feel very heavy and intense, but it's important to remember these things. It's important to remember that there was a moment, a kind of moment where reality was shifted and it created distorted thinking, and then I can remind myself that it is distorted thinking and it's not reality, and the reality is they were drunk and it was sad, and I get to let it go when I want to. I get to move on from it when I want to, when I'm ready to have it removed. I don't have to live in that for the rest of my life. And I think that's, it's called from survival to recovery, right? So we were surviving and now we can recover. And that's what I'm trying to do here. So I appreciate everyone who shared, and I can't wait to hear more.